gentlemen, welcome to the second day of the NSSF Career Expo. It is going virtually this year. You know why. We are dealing with a pandemic, and this is why we could not gather in large numbers to do this Career Expo. However, welcome once again. We do thank you so much, those that joined us yesterday, and even those that are joining us still today. My name is Sandra Twinodio, and I'm excited, delighted, looking forward to all the sessions we're going to be having here today. Just briefly about me, I introduced myself yesterday, but for you who's joining us today, I will do that again for you. I am a moderator. I love moderating. I am also an entrepreneur in fashion, youth guidance, and digital marketing. I am a journalist working with NTV Uganda as a reporter and also news anchor. Now, the career this year is repurposing your career goals to the new normal. This is our general theme, and we've been dividing it into three themes. Yesterday's theme was basically looking at how you can repurpose, purposing your new ideas and opportunities beyond the university degree. Most of us go to school, we think after getting a bachelor's degree in this particular segment, that's it. You just move on to get a job. But then what are some of the opportunities and ideas that are available that you can use that are beyond? And we had amazing speakers yesterday. I'll break it down for you who did not join us yesterday. We had the CEO of Jumia, that is Ron Kawamara, and he was very elaborate on how you can actually use your internships here and there to ensure that by the time you're employed, you have the required skills. We also had Milton Owor, the head of Human Resources and Administration here at the NSSF, the main man that told us what will make you stand out, when you're standing in front of the employer. The way you dress, the way you speak, the way you present yourself, the way you make that very fast impression. Remember, it is a lasting one. We also had John Senkezi, who's the digital supervisor at NSSF, was also very deliberate on reminding us why it is important to have the passion at the back of your mind. At the end of the day, when you're doing something that you love, chances are you're going to do it so well. Now, the key takeaways from yesterday, this is for you again who wants to be reminded or who's joining us today so that you understand how the two topics of yesterday are falling into today's topic, matching your capabilities to the changing world. Aim to make an impact. As a young person, it is key for you to make deliberate, intentional efforts to create an impact. So if you're getting into a company, what impact are you going to bring to, say, this company? What is that unique aspect about you that sets you apart, that will encourage people to hire you so that you will contribute to the impact that they are looking for? Also, it's very key, even when you get the university degree, work towards getting the soft skills, work on building your trust, work well with others. And Milton Owor yesterday was very deliberate to remind us to avoid office politics. When you're getting into any organization as a university student looking for a job, you need to know that when you get into an employment space, you should avoid playing the politics of the office, trying to bring others down so that you can excel and be better than others. Now, the key aspect now also to our speakers today who will be building onto that is that most of the people that were watching us, the students, mentioned that they will work with different internship places and they don't get paid. And young people have complained about that a number of times. They'll probably say they gave me only coffee, or they only gave me transport 10K to go back home. But here we were being reminded that in the meantime, as you're waiting for that salary, what are you doing? How are you building up your CV? So what are you doing in the meantime as you wait for an opportunity? Also, something that young people need to exploit if you're in vacation and you're working towards university and later getting employed somewhere, work on building an online presence, because these days we are in the digital era, technologies all over the place. People will look for you on their social media platforms. So what exactly are you doing that will encourage someone to come to your social media platform and look forward to having you on their team? Hard work is key. They always say you have to put in the work. You cannot just sit back and things work out okay. You have to put in the work. Absolutely. Any single day, you have to put in the work. Now, communication skills are also very important. Whichever business you're in, you're going to be communicating with people. So it's very important for you to work on how you communicate with the people around you. That's very key. Remember what they always say, network and your network is your net worth. So young people are encouraged that as you purpose your new ideas and opportunities beyond the university degree, how are you building your network? So what are you exactly doing that will encourage people to look for you? When they come to you, do they know you have contacts here and there? Or can you have certain people that you can speak to that will get you into an employment space? So work on building your networks. And finally, so many things were talked about, but I'm just breaking it down for us so that we know why are we now moving from purposing new ideas and opportunities beyond the university degree to now matching your capabilities to the changing world. So after getting all this, after putting in the work, after having the passion, after building your networks, how do you then match all that to the changing world? And this is why today we are having another amazing panel of speakers, and I'm excited that they're all here. I'm looking forward to learning from each one of you, and we'll be looking at how do you match all the things that we talked about yesterday to the changing world. However, we want to remind you that we are going to be giving away lots and lots of prizes. So when you attend, you get knowledge, you also get some prizes. So who doesn't like that? We'll be giving away amazing prizes, but we also remind you there's a survey at every end of the session. We want to understand, just for future purposes, how is this session helping you? How has it encouraged you to step out of your comfort zone? So please do remember to fill in that survey at the end of every single survey, and you also stand a chance of winning our goodies. Also, remember, out of this session, at least something that you should take out of this, apart from the learning and doing this, it's important to become an NSSF member. All you have to do is dial 254# and follow the prompts, or get to your Google Play or Apple Store and download the NSSF Go app. There you'll have it, and when you're getting into the employment space, that number will be needed, so you need to get it right away. So getting into today, ladies and gentlemen, matching our capabilities with the new changing world. We know that in Uganda, like other African countries, youth unemployment is one of the key issues. If politicians are moving from one place to another, they will usually hinge on that, saying, oh, we are going to address unemployment this way, we're going to provide employment opportunities here and there. It's a huge problem across the globe, and Uganda is no exception. So one of the main reasons is that there are many graduates released into the job market every single year. Then the jobs being created on a yearly basis. And the limited jobs available make it difficult for one to acquire them. And this is why today we want to speak to the young people and ask them, guide them from your expertise. How can they become very exceptional? How can they stand out in the job environment? So this conversation is based on capabilities and how they can be matched to the changing world. Like I mentioned, we are privileged to have a panel of experienced professionals to help us crack this out. I'll start with the ladies. They always say ladies first. So Emma Mucha is the Executive Director and Head of Investment at Big Bank. Welcome. We're glad to have you on the panel. She's right there, the only lady on the panel today. And one of the key things that I've had to say is that your degree is good, so please get it, but it's not enough. So we are waiting to see why is it not enough. We also have my immediate left, the gentleman that was a little bit scared to sit right next to me. We are excited to have you on our panel today, Stephen Mwanje, who is the Chief Financial Officer, NSSF, and he is a known banker and is an established accountant. We are delighted to hear from you and also learn from you today.
Thank you, Sandra.
Yes. And finally, on the panel today, we have Elijah Chitaka. All you have to know about him is that he's a tech entrepreneur, co-founder and CEO of Feza, an entertainment and tech startup in Uganda. He was also formerly the head of technology at NSSF. Should I say you are the ex-Google, ex-Barclays, and you have an experience of 16 years in radio hosting on Radio 1. You love jazz music. So maybe at the end of this session, we can have some bit of that. Can we do that?
Pay enough, I can do it.
If we pay enough.
If you pay enough, yeah.
So ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, an amazing panel of speakers. And I do want to throw the question right away to you, Elijah, just to start us off. We know that capabilities are linked to one's ability to do something. Yeah, in your own experience, what are some of those things that you've done on a daily that have kept you relevant in this changing world?
That's a tough question. I would say three things. One is the ability to link what you have to do to business value.
Yes.
So I think most people, let me talk about what I've done. So that's the first thing. Given any opportunity, what I'm trying to look for is how does this link back to something that is crucially important to the success of the organization and the people that it serves, so its customers. So your ability to link what you do to business value is really important, and it has helped me in my career over time. That's one. The second thing is discipline and self-management. People here in leadership, but and managing people is great, but it's not what you should spend 100% of your time on. Essentially, when I'm being hired or when I'm hiring, I'm looking for people that will be self-managed, that can self-pace and deliver results without being babysat. So over time, I've built the capability of being self-managed. In fact, I could go a whole year without having a discussion with my direct manager, and they won't worry that I'm going off track. I think that's really important because everyone's time is important. So when you're being hired to free up time, to free up management time. And so if you come into the work environment and you add a load onto management time, it's kind of tricky. So the second thing I've done is to learn how to self-manage. Once you understand the strategic objectives of where you're going or the company that you're working for, learn to manage your time and manage how you deploy yourself without consuming management time. Then the third thing that I've done is to be results-oriented. I think it's really easy to get caught up in activities because life is busy and work is busy, and you will always have plenty of activities to consume you. But not everything that consumes your time is going to lead to impactful results. So the ability to decipher, what result is important, and therefore work deliberately to achieve those results. So be results-oriented. I think for me, those are the three things that have built deliberately over time to survive in the corporate world and also entrepreneurship world.
Very interesting point, Elijah Chitaka. I know that most of us, when we get in a space where we are working, we're usually, first of it all, we get irritated when someone is telling you, keep time, do this and do the other. But again, it's an important aspect if you take it on yourself and say, I have to keep time, show up on time, dress appropriately, and also do my job well. So thank you so much, Elijah, for that submission. Now, moving on to Emma. You mentioned that the degree is not enough. It's important that you do it, but it's not enough. Why did you say so? And what do you think are some of the triggers that should force young people watching us today to look at taking up their capabilities, but then matching them and sort of creating a parallel with the changing world? Why do you think that is important?
Thank you very much. The reason I said that your first degree doesn't really matter comes from my story. I wanted to be a banker from when I was a child, and the reason is a bit strange because my auntie was a teller at Stanchart, and she used to come to my mom's shop and count money like this. So I wanted to learn the skill of counting money. So, okay, the reason is a bit funny, but I was clear I wanted to do banking. Being the Gaza girl that I am, I got a 3 in math. So, in my mind, to do banking, I needed to do BCom. To do BCom, I needed to do MEG, math, economics, and something at A level. But at O level, I got a 3 in math, and that year, you couldn't do math at A level unless you had a 1 or 2. So my plan was short-circuited. And I ended up doing leg, and then university in my time was very limited in choices. So if you did arts, you either did law, journalism, or social work, or education, and then BS and all the other things. We didn't have business administration. We didn't have all the funky things that the young people have
that we are having
today. Yeah. So So in my mind, I was now eliminating. So I didn't want to be a lawyer because I'd seen big black books in lawyers' offices, and I didn't want to read big black books all my life. I didn't want to be a journalist because my view of journalism at the time was reading news on TV. So I ended up doing SWASA. More from an elimination perspective, not that that's what I wanted, but I wanted to be a banker. And SWASA, you either become a social development worker or you become an HR practitioner. But I was clear about what I wanted to do. So I ended up in microfinance, which was the closest to banking that I could get to into that time. And then later I went to do my MBA and joined banking. So the reason I was saying that comes from that story. You're clear about where you're going. First tick this box of a first degree, because most people will first ask, what degree did you get before you get a step in the door? But if we look at the trends of jobs these days, you literally have to make the jobs. If you think about, let's say, internet marketing, there's no real degree that leads you to that. But that might be your passion. You're a Facebooker, you've been a Facebooker and you're stuck to your phone, and you might want to change that passion into value, like Elijah was saying. So if you look at the SMEs that are trying to get onto internet, can you go and create a portfolio of customers? My mom runs a shop on Lone Street. She Facebooks, yes, but for fun, right? Tell her, I will be your marketing online, and I will, if I bring you value, you pay me. Can you get that passion and create value out of it? And learn. Online has so many resources. Learn something else that actually creates you a job, that you create a job yourself. That was where I was coming with that point.
All right. Thank you so much, Emma. What I gather from your conversation is that it's very important to be clear on what you want, because from your childhood you were clear you wanted to be a banker. You did not want to become a journalist, a lawyer. You did not want to read huge, big books and all that. You just wanted to count money. And here you are, you're counting money. So yes, clarity is very important. Yes. So when you look, I will stay with you. When you look at today's theme, matching your capabilities to the changing world, what is that one thing that strikes you that you think young people should think about this morning?
Arriving at your first job is not necessarily arriving. You need to stay curious. You need to stay learning. And the skills I needed when I first joined banking are very different from the skills I need now. And I haven't necessarily gone back to school to learn those skills. So continuous learning, reading the right books. Initially, I used to read the wrong books. Reading the right books that bring you to the skills that you need, right? But also there's so much. There's podcasts, there's online, short courses. During COVID, Harvard was giving us free courses. I did a Harvard course, so I can now add Harvard to my name. I mean, there's a lot of material online to help you change your skills to what is needed. So I'll give you an example. Last year I had to set up a data office. One of the deliverables I had was to set up a data office. Like I said, I'm a social worker. I've done an MBA like many years ago. When it comes to what is required, what's a data scientist, is all, is not a skill that I had. But I went on to a Salesforce course and actually did all the courses on data. Yes. By the end of it, I felt confident enough to be able to write a job description for a head of data enterprise. And I was able to set up that office because I could find material online to upskill myself, to get myself competent to do a more relevant role in the new world than what I've always done. So continuous learning, being curious, I think is very key in this VUCA world, if I can put it that way.
All right, thank you so much, Emma Mugisha. Now, moving on to Stevens Mwanje, who is the Chief Financial Officer. When you look at today's topic, what are some of those triggers? She has mentioned some. The world is constantly changing. But what are some of those triggers that you think should encourage people to actually pay attention to this topic today?
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Basically, if you listen to what my colleagues have said, it's like they have basically covered it all. But the thing, I think I'll start by a quote. I think it was one of those American presidents, Franklin Benjamin, who said that the only thing certain about life is change, death, and taxes. So now the person has to be very, very attentive to what is taking place around you, and then to know how to seize that opportunity.
Yes.
Because now when we are looking at the current world now, the young world, the days of having a job, an 8 to 5 job, and that bus has left the stage. And it was taking place, but COVID has accelerated that. Now, person has to be able to just look at the opportunities, make sure you know the changes, you are observing the changes, and keep on reskilling. Because the skill, I mean, when she was talking about her story, it's almost like my story. The skills that we started with are just basic. Your degree is basic. But you need to know and focus on what you want to do and plan how to get there. So when you look at the change, look at what is in the environment, look at the skill set that you need and work towards it. And there's quite a lot of material everywhere. And it's free. A lot of this material now is free on the web. And all you need to just keep on self-improving. And you get there.
All right. Thank you so much, Stephen Mwanje. Self-management is important. Clarity and focus and constantly improving on what you do and how you do it. So I want to get back to you, Elijah Chitaka. You are an employer. So you're looking for people coming through for you in your company. I know that reskilling and upskilling are some of the key aspects that people need to continue employing, like you've all mentioned. In your organization, for instance, do you have that your people are up to speed with the changing world?
I would say yes, but going back to what I said, it's actually more your role as the employee to read that before it even happens. So you'll find in the workplace there are two types of people. There are people that are paced by the employer, and there are people that are paced by the changing world and themselves. And to be honest, as an employer in a rough business environment, you don't want people that are going to be paced by you.
Yes.
You kind of want people that are pacing you and are pacing your business. So yes, I could say, yeah, we look at upskilling and all, but I feel like that's your primary role as someone who is looking to add value to the organization. You shouldn't even wait for the organization. Now, you can get support. So for instance, if you identify that, I'll give you an example. So for FESA, for instance, COVID hit when tech and entertainment. And entertainment is driven by gatherings. So that's the first thing that went out the window. This was in March 18th. By April 1st, we had already announced our first virtual show. So we had built a whole pay-per-view platform online. We're going to be able to stream shows and charge for them and deliver them to a global audience. So as someone who works at FESA, what do you think has changed? Because now your customer is not coming to Design Hub to watch a show. Now you're targeting people in Boston, you're targeting people in Tokyo. Everything has changed. Now, you need to watch that and see it before I even have to tell you that our customer is now different. What do they expect? What is that experience going to be? You're used to hosting 300 people in a room, and you can pamper them and charge a premium because you have a table, it has whiskey, it has dedicated waiters, and you have VIP. Okay, so now you're virtual. How are you going to differentiate these tiers? How do you create a special experience for someone for you to be able to say, even virtually, I can create tiers of tickets? Now, you could wait for me to pace you to do that, or you could pace yourself and then come to me and say, Elijah, here are the things that have changed about our environment. And if we're going to do A, B, C, and D, this is what I need. I've already taken this first step, but perhaps I need you to pay for this certification, or I need you to pay for this license, or I need you to pay for. That's much better in my view. So I love developing people, but it's better to develop people that are hungry to develop themselves. It's always much easier. So I hear the question, and yes, I take a deliberate action, but I love to just support people that show hunger and show proactivity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Staying with you again, what are some, from a personal perspective, personal experience, we just want our students, our young people to feel like they can relate with you. What are those things that you have done in your career journey that have kept you evolving, and keeping up to speed with the changing world?
Yeah, so the same things I said earlier, to be honest. I know they sound complicated, or they might sound complicated, but they're really not. My story is a bit different from Emma and Steven's. I actually started my first company as a first-year student at university. This was back in '98, so you can compute my age. Now, '98 is pre-internet. It's pre-YouTube. It's pre-everything that people take for granted today. '98 is like, I mean, MMS and SMS time. People today don't even know what MMS is. Like, to send pictures on mobile before was a big deal. You needed like special protocols for it. So this is back in '98. I went to school to do civil engineering. I was a civil engineering student. I had started a tech company. That tech company is True African. True African ended up being pretty successful. Of course, many years later, I exited it and went into other things. Then I left civil engineering. I didn't even complete it. 3 years later, I dropped out of civil, concentrated on my tech company, then went back to school to do computer science. Right? What I'm saying is, I might be saying things that sound complicated to young people, but young people today have it really, really easy to start. It was hard to start before. Like, there was no internet. If you wanted to start a tech company, you had to build servers yourself. You had to build cooling yourself. Today, you just go to Google Cloud and Amazon Web Services and you fire up, servers, and these are things you don't even care about. So, like I said, read the market, read the employers, figure out what value they're after, and see how you position yourself to contribute meaningfully to that value. Maybe I'm making it so complicated, but it's not. And these are smart people. Young people are really smart, right? They just need a little bit of guidance. So read value. Read value because the world moves on value. Value is the biggest currency. That's the first thing. Second thing is self-manage. Like, no one is employing you to become a headache. I don't want more people to manage. I want more people to free up my management time. Yeah. So I don't want you to add to my load. When I hire you, first I'm hiring you for value, but I'm also hiring you to free me up, to free up management time, not to sit with you every morning, to consume more time, right? So all these things are things people can build, but you have to be deliberate. Like, for you to break the cycle of school, because school is very instructional. So you're used to being on the receiving end of instructions, to workplace, which is very contribution-driven and value-driven. You have to get out of that cycle of being told that, this coursework is due on this date, to saying, I have time and this thing gives me 2 weeks, I can do it in 2 days, I'll free up the other days to do X, Y, and Z. I think that mindset change needs to happen very quickly once you leave the school environment. And I think for me, the biggest negative of school environments is pacing. You're used to being paced, by your lecturers, by...
Time for prep, morning prep.
Once you leave school, please forget that. Yeah. Like, no one is going to pace you. No, you're your own pacemaker. And the more you can pace others, the more rapidly you'll grow.
In fact, you just remind me of how difficult it was for me when I was leaving my high school to university, how hard it was for me, knowing I have a lecture at 8 and no one is waking me up. I have to wake up, do everything. I was used to, back in school, for those that are still at school, there are those teachers that come with sticks in the morning and knock on every single day, waking you up. But when you get out, the situation is different. But I want us now to speak to an A-level student, and I will direct this to you, Stephen Mwanje, who's looking at selecting a course to do at university or any other institution of higher learning. What are some of the things they should consider before they take on a course, well knowing at the back of their mind they are working in a changing world?
Okay. I think I'm I'm getting quotes out of my head today, but let me start with another one. I don't remember exactly the person who said it. They say the literate person of current world is not the one who knows how to read and write, but the one who can learn and learn and relearn. If you are starting out in the world now and the way it is, then you know that actually the job or you are going to do probably is not even there by the time you start doing your university course. So if you go back to what Anne said, yes, get it's important, but you should be looking out for all the opportunities now, because everything now has moved towards what the fourth revolution now is all about, IT, data, and whatever. Let me give you an example of my profession. Now, everyone knew that to be an accountant, all you needed to do have the bookkeeping and basic accounting skills.
Yes.
But now all that is in a software. All that. I mean, you see your campus entries and all that is in a software. So now what is the modern accountant going to do? So the modern accountant now is supposed to be adding value to the organization, providing information that is going to help an organization to make strategic decisions. It's no longer about bookkeeping. So now all of a sudden we have moved from bookkeeping to managing and manipulating data so that we can be able to give that critical guidance or reporting that is going to help management, the boards, and whatever to make those critical decisions. So coming back to your question, if you are just setting out to do a course, whatever you do, whether you want to do engineering, whether you do accounting, whatever, do something on the side that is going to direct you into technology and data science. If you do that, then you are on the right path. But if you are just going to say, okay, now for me, I want to be a psychologist, and that is it, you come back that everything you used to do, it will be in a software. They will just software put in symptoms, and it tells you what to do. Now, doctors are even doing online diagnosis. So everything is moving towards data, IT, data science. So whatever you want to do, that's where you should start and should have that add-on.
All right. Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you so much, Stephen Mwanje. Now, Emma, I do want to pick your thoughts on some of the mistakes that young people make in trying to keep up with the trends of this world. What are some of those mistakes that you probably witness either in your company or your children or your friends' children or even your friends? Those mistakes that could come off as they're trying to keep up, but they're actually putting them back, taking them back.
Let me start with the parents.
Yeah.
So you put out a job advert, and instead of a child or the young adult coming to apply for the job, the mother calls you and says, I need a job for my child. We're like, okay, where's the child? No. I wanted to negotiate it, and then the child will come. So I think some of the mistakes we're making as parents is we are, raising delicate eggs.
adults.
Yeah. By the time they get to adults, and they don't have the skills to get into the world themselves. So I'll start there. The way I was raised is, I said my mom has had a shop on Loom Street. I was raised on Loom Street. I could sell my mom had a philosophy that I can't make the money and then I go and make a line in the bank for your school fees. You give your school fees, you go to, that time it was Greenlace Bank, stand in a long school fees line. So by the time you're paying that school fees, you've also felt a bit of the pain of that money. Mm. When you go to school, you'll actually study. So I try to, the world is different. So for us, we are protecting, our children. And so when my son was in S4VAC, I sent him off to work at a tech company. And the first day he had to take a taxi home, I actually got an ulcer. that's how we are so scared to let our children out. So by the time they become young adults, they actually don't have the initiative to go and knock on doors and actually find these opportunities. But we've also probably a bit far removed to even find the right opportunities for them. Or our thoughts, our views of a job is not what they want. So there's a mismatch there. So some of the mistakes I think young people are doing is putting up with us
The
very
parents.
protective parents,
Yes.
helicopter parents as we are called. Breakout. I mean, if you have a long vacation, you don't have to be paid. Just go and volunteer. If you come and to a business and say, I need to volunteer so that I can pick up some skills, do that. And work with your parents to figure out safety and all those other things that we fear, but break out. The first time my son had to get on a boda boda, it was like the world had come to an end. But when as a child, we used to walk from Kitante to Lubiri by ourselves when we were probably 10, 11. Can you imagine from Kitante Primary School to Lubiri Secondary School where we used to live? Makere down, Namirembe down, like we walked back home. So I know the world has changed and it's a lot riskier, but I think the mistake comes from the way we are bringing up our children, but also our children are over-enjoying the comfort and spending so much time on, now there's internet in the home all the time since breaking out to just, get these skills ahead of time. So my son wanted to do medicine, and so he was back and forth between engineering and medicine for the longest time. So I asked Nakasero Hospital if he could be there for 2 weeks, just for him to get an idea whether if he sees someone being pricked, he'll faint, and therefore will give up this medicine idea. But he actually got excited and strengthened his conviction, and is now in first year doing medicine. So let's, as parents, let go and let our children experience outside of the comfort and warmth of the homes and walls that we've created for them. But also the children need to pressure the parents to open the gates a bit more.
Okay, thank you so much, Emma. Now, Elijah Chitaka, there's some of us, I don't know from the audience or from us, that have had a rough start of one's career. You grow up knowing your parents want you to be a doctor, and it's just a conversation that we are building onto from Emma's. They want you to be a lawyer. They want you to be this and that. For a child that has gone through high school and maybe notices some changes in the world, how would you say they should communicate to their parents? How do you then go to your parent and say, because there are probably those that are in senior six and are wondering, how do I tell my parent that has always wanted me to be a lawyer that now I'm going to do something else? How do you communicate with your parents respectfully and more especially in a calm way?
I'm so the wrong person to ask. I'm so wrong to ask because, no, seriously, I do all these tests and the tests come out the same. Like, I am not a very compliant person. So that's why I'm saying I'm the wrong person to ask. I'm the wrong person to ask because, for instance, when I made the switch from civil engineering, I didn't really get consent from my parents. I really didn't. In my mind, it didn't even occur to me that I needed to. But more importantly, they also didn't mind.
You see, the challenge comes from if your parents are paying your tuition.
Yeah, and they were.
They're paying your hostel
Right?
fee, they're giving you money to feed, so they have to guide your decision making.
And they were. So I'll speak for myself. I think that what I would look for is conviction. And perhaps what my family, immediate family, looked for or convinced them was my conviction on the path I needed to take. Because sometimes when there is lack of conviction, there is need for more guidance, right? So perhaps I was just really convinced that, this is not the path for me. And once they got the sense that I have strong convictions, it was easier for them to let me be. Now, obviously, now I'm a parent, so I have a different hat now, and I revisit some of my actions, and I'm like, how would I react if, my little girl came and started telling me, look, I'm in my 3rd year of engineering, I'm supposed to finish next year, but I actually don't like it, I'm abandoning it. And then I'll go back much later. I'll be like, okay, perhaps we should finish this. So now I am revisiting my actions to figure out, wow, these guys must have really had so much confidence in my conviction. I wonder what gave them that. But like Emma said, I think for us, when we're growing up, there was a lot of opportunity to show that you could be responsible. So the stories you say about walking from kitchen to, that's exactly how all of us grew up. Like, yes, you could be picked up once in a while, but like that was an anomaly. In fact, you would wonder, what have I done? But most times you're left to figure it out. And there was this deep sense of confidence that they had that you would make it home, and the truth is you made it home. So I think the parents that raised us showed a lot of opportunities to grow our confidence.
Yes.
That lacks today. I see it with myself. I mean, how can I send I would take my daughter to school. Like, I wouldn't even give them to an Uber if I didn't know them. I'm that protective. For some reason, our parents were a bit different. And I don't know what got lost, because I think it was critical, and that's why they let us make seemingly risky decisions that didn't turn out so badly, because that fiber had been built over time. Now, that's the fiber we're not building for our kids. I don't know what changed, but I really think, for me, that explains why this rebellious attitude was kind of accommodated by them, because they knew they could throw you in the deep end and you'd survive. You'd walk home, you'd get out of bed and hit the street at 6 a.m. because you need to make it to school before 7.
Yes.
And you'd make it there, right? So I don't know if I have the advice on how to deal with your parent. My thinking is grow their confidence in what you truly believe.
Okay, even for those, the university students that are in their final year and they're stepping into the employment space,
Yeah.
You've heard Emma say there are those that will have parents look for jobs on their behalf. As a child, because like she mentioned, it's time for you not to enjoy that comfort zone. If your parent is saying, oh, I've gotten you an internship here, a job here, and you want somewhere else, how do you communicate that?
Again, build the confidence. Build the confidence to stand up for yourself. And like I've mentioned, if you do not show strong conviction, people will feel the need to guide more. If you show strong conviction, then you will sell people. It rubs off people, right? They'll be convinced on your behalf. If you're excited about opportunities, people will become excited for you.
Yes.
If it feels like you're on the fence, then now I need to step in and say, okay, let me point you in this direction. And it might be the direction that you don't want to go down, right? So build your own fiber to be confident in the things that you feel and believe. And do not be intimidated by anyone to make those things come out, right? Because your fear might be, what would they think? But the truth of the matter is the world works on your energy. The world works on the energy you provide. And if you feel convinced about something enough, the people in the room will sense that and feed off that energy and perhaps become convinced themselves. If you start giving up a vibe like, I'm very unsure about what steps to take, then I will be prompted to take more actions, to direct you into maybe the kind of life I wanted to have, or what my idea of what the world needs today. But my world is very different from your world. Like, that's the reality. I live in a different world now. You need to make the decisions in your new world might not necessarily be the right thing. So yes, there are lessons you could learn from me, but I'm really convinced that we live in different worlds. Even for the people now that are leaving school, they are facing a whole different world from my world. So yes, I could give you advice, but take my advice with a pinch of salt. We live in very different times.
Yes.
Right? And be confident enough to say, this is what I believe,
Yeah.
and I want to give it a shot. And if it fails, you can then start over. And the good thing about being young is that you have many opportunities to start over. So you can take more risks. So what if you fail for the first 2 years? Okay. So what if you've done a degree for 3 years and it didn't make sense? So you go back and do another one. spent 7 years on campus, so what? Right? Like, don't feel like 1 year, if you fail for 1 year, it's the end of the world. No, as a young person, you have chances to try and experiment.
Yes.
And start over and even move faster than you imagine. So don't be scared that you could fail. Fail a few times. The earlier you do it, the better for you. Don't fail at our ages. That's dangerous. Like you might not start over, right?
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you so much, Elijah Chitaka. Now, recently graduated, no job, limited access to money. How do you now match your capabilities to the changing world? You have no job, limited access to money. You've just gotten out of university.
Yes.
You probably were doing an internship somewhere and you're literally getting 5,000 for transport back home, but you also want to keep up with the trends. What are some of those life hacks that you can throw our way today?
Okay. The first thing, the unfortunate thing for the young ones who are recently graduated is to the system, which drums into you that go to university, get a good grade, and get a good job. That was probably possible in our times, because every time you go out of university, government will have thousands of jobs for civil servants, all this stuff. Right now, the job market is actually shrinking. So what you need to do is just look into yourself. Let me give you an example. It was 2019 when we did the last career. So that time, COVID had just started. And I was talking to the students in MOOBs, and I was telling them, you know what? COVID has already disrupted China. It is going to disrupt the Western world. It's going to come to Uganda and disrupt us. So what do we need to do? If you know you're going out into the world, what are you going to do? And everyone was saying, no, that is a Chinese disease, and everyone was murmuring. But I told them, but look at I asked, okay, what is the common thing you see about the Chinese where the COVID is? And I say, so one of the kids put up a hand and said, masks. I say, now, if you know that it's happening and you tap into that market. So there was this young man, was very interesting. I won't mention his name, but eventually I took his number and I told him I'll really be happy to mentor him. So fast forward, March, the universities are closed. He goes back to his home, up country. And you know what he does? He starts making masks using his mother's sewing machine. The mother is a seamstress who was paying tuition. Because now the government had ordered everyone should put on masks, and he's making masks and he can't, in his district, he's the only one making them, and can't even fulfill the order. So he kept on telling me, sending me pictures, and is making so much money. All of a sudden, now he becomes the breadwinner of the family, and doesn't need his mother to do what? To pay tuition for him anymore. He's still at MOOBs, this young man. And we in communication, we talk a lot. But that now takes me what I'm saying now. If you are coming out of university right now, the first thing you should think about is how you are going to put yourself to work, rather than who is going to put you to work. Now, what is common in the world now is coming up is gig working. You don't have to come to NSSF to be given a 8 to 5 job, but we can give you particular tasks which you can do and complete and deliver, and then we are paid. I think that's where the mental focus should be. If you are lucky to get a job which can give you that kind of capital and whatever, which can start you off, then you are lucky, but still don't lose focus. Go back to what Elijah said, go back to what Anna said, and remember that the world has moved on. No one is going to give you, even all the companies, even if I look at our place now, last year, all of us were used to come to work. Now, only 30% of us come to work here. The rest are working from home. Last year in Feb, you could never find a chief financial officer of NSSF dressed like this on a Thursday. I'll be putting on a sharp suit with my white shirt and
Are
whatever.
you enjoying it? Or?
Okay, it was very uncomfortable to start with, but these are the times. Now, I've had to give all my suits because I don't know when to put them on. I left with one or two because they're no longer relevant. And that's how fast the world is moving.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So that's how
So
it should
put
be.
yourself to work in the meantime.
Yeah,
Do
exactly.
something, and I think that sort of talks about you looking at your environment and identifying things that you can take advantage of in your community.
Right.
Well, anyway, to you, our live audience, do remember you can follow us on our social media platforms, NSSF on Facebook, NSSF Uganda on Twitter. The hashtag is hashtag NSSF Expo 2021. Go right there, send us your questions, your views about the Expo and how it is actually helping you carry through and make important decisions in your life at this point in time. Maybe you're at university, you're planning to get out into the employment space. How is this Expo helping you? And most importantly, what is that one aspect that you would want our speakers to answer? And that brings me now to the questions that we've received from our audience. From Businje Jordan, he says that to me, says Emma Mujisha, what advice would you give to a student that is eager to learn additional courses while still pursuing a bachelor's course, considering that you have to utilize the online resources and be able to balance both studies and both studies, yeah?
Back to Elijah's self-management.
Yes.
You have 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say you are good at sleeping and you sleep for 8. Out of that, you still have 16 hours. My math is right? Of that, your courses, your university courses are probably 6 hours. So you're down to 10. What are you using the rest of the 10 hours for? And your online course probably needs you to concentrate for 45 minutes or an hour a day. So be intentional with what you want to do and self-manage yourself to make time for the important things. I remember when we went to university, I think the first year we were so excited about the freedom that the first year just whizzed past us. By the time we realized we were now, luckily for us, first year didn't count to your final exam. But the self-management is key. Yes, you need to socialize. Yes, you need to meet up with your friends. Yes, you need to do all the other fun things that have to be done. You have to play some sports. But be intentional in how you manage your time and be disciplined to be able to get everything that you need to put in there in the time that God has given you. It's the same time everybody has. So it's up to you to manage it well and apportion it to the things that you want to achieve.
Very well said, Emma Mujisha. There you have it. I hope, Jordan, that has been answered properly. Manage your time. You have 24 hours in a day. You can sleep your 8, but what happens to the rest?
So sleep 7, and that one can be for your
online course. Absolutely. So Ruka Ivan says, you are from Gulu University. Thank you for joining us today. You're saying that thank you for the expo. Most times parents accept courses offered by the government through government sponsorship, and yet those are not really our dream courses. Remember my question. Personally, I have been doing this course for 4 years, and it's not by choice, as my plan is to get the paper, give it to my parents, and go back and do what I want. What is your advice for me? Let me give it to Stephen Mwanje.
Simple, you're on the right track. Because you are not going to do and enjoy something that you have no conviction about. I've seen, I know of a person who was forced to become a doctor by the parents. He went, became a doctor, but eventually went back to school and studied accounting because that's what he wanted to do. He basically handed the doctor's certificate to the parents, and now he's one of the best accountants in the world in Big Four. He's a Ugandan based in Europe. But that's exactly what he did. So if you have the conviction about and you know what you want to do, your first degree is helping you probably open the doors or even help you in the first few months to earn a little bit of money to go back and do what you want. But stay focused. You're on the right course.
So he can go ahead, finish the course, get the paper, give it to the parents?
Not necessarily give it to the parents, that's kind of rude.
Yeah.
But like tell them, okay, yeah,
Yes.
but I've done this, but I also want to do this because this is what I believe in.
Okay. Now we have Ayebare Robert that takes us back to our previous question of managing time and this and that. But for him, he says that Miss Emma Musha, what ideas, what values do you cherish most as you do your day-to-day activities?
That's an interesting one. So the things I think myself as a developer of people, and I think that's my, you want, calling. So I always want to do a job where I'm working with people. I'm also an extrovert, so I get my energy from working in teams. So one of the things I cherish is that ability to challenge one another and help each other to get better. I don't come to a team feeling like I know everything. I come to a team to harness all the clever in the team such that we get a very good outcome. So that's one thing that I cherish. Quite a spiritual person, so I start my day connecting with the guy upstairs just to make sure that I'm cognizant that I don't control everything. And so I need to somewhere to tap into that energy. So that is also something that's part of me. Family is important. Much as I'm a career woman and I want to be all these things, I also want to have brought up functional children and have a good family life. So the trade-offs along the way that I've had to do to be able to have both. And I still try and make sure that my family is catered for in this process of my career as well.
Okay. Elijah, this is for you. For some reason, I hope you had already mentioned it may not be for you, but Mwambusio Aaron says that, hello, 2021 NSSF Virtual Expo. A very good morning. My question is, how can someone overcome this issue of being not hired to work due to being a fresh graduate since you have no experience at all?
Get the experience as you study. That's the quickest trick. By the time you leave campus, you should already have like 2 years experience at minimum. That's the honest truth. And you have the time for it. I mentioned how I personally started. Life is about head starts. It's about you reading what you're going to need and doing it before you need it. Now, if you're trying to get to start your experience after graduating, you're already late. It's late. That's the honest truth. You have to start before. So look for opportunities as you study. Now, the thing is that I guess people's definition of opportunities is too narrow because they don't know, I guess they don't know how to articulate. But for instance, if Emma's mom has a shop, working there is actually experience, right? If you're deliberate about your contribution and how it creates value and packaging it, that's actual experience. Maybe you've helped grow that business from, I don't know, 10 million to 20 million. Maybe you've helped to manage, the shop during a long absence. All that stuff actually helps. Formal work is not very different from informal work. It just has more structure, right? So do not feel like experience is having an NSSF job or experience is having like a Stanbic job. No, you can build experience from, right? So don't waste your time at campus. Like that time is your first experience. And the truth of the matter is you have a lot of opportunity to live. By the time you graduate, you probably have 2 years under your belt. Now, don't make it too flashy. Don't be too choosy. But know what to articulate. Businesses look for the same thing. Businesses are just at different brand scales. but they look for the same thing. Even a small business in Chikuvu wants someone that will understand its customer and turn it around. And if you can do that and you have evidence of that, that is valuable experience. So don't look for a big logo with a big brand and think that that is the only experience that matters. No. Any opportunity where you can prove that I have evidence here that I can bring on board business value, that's valuable experience, right? And you can do that at many levels. So don't wait. Do not, if you're waiting to leave school to start building experience, you're too late. Like, your colleagues are always going to be 3 years ahead of you.
Thank you so much, Elijah. Yes.
About a lady at MOOBS who had, I think, 6 other young ladies and organized them to pick up laundry and wash the laundry and clean the houses. So imagine if bachelors or working people have a contract, formal contract, to go to their house, wash their clothes, hang them out, dry them, iron them, clean the house, lock it up, and you have a weekly contract and you get paid. Now, this young lady was also managing people, so she was already managing a team, as well as studying. So from an organizational perspective, from a leading a team perspective, from logistics, how much soap do we need for us to be able to do a good job? What is that costing? How do I cost the job so that I make a profit at the end of the day? If they come to an interview and they ask them a commercial question, they will not remember what the lecturer told them. They'll just tell you exactly how they manage this small business, and they'll be way ahead of you who was partying at university.
So that, I always love to pick out a key phrase that can stay in the minds of young people. You mentioned, Elijah, that do what you have to do. Maybe you'll help me rephrase it better the way you had said it, for when you will need it. And I wanted that to be in the minds of our students today. Maybe you could say that again in your own words.
So many things. I don't know if I can repeat things I say, because I'm quite spontaneous. But I think what you're saying is understand what is going to be needed in the future and do it before you need it. Because if you start, going to Stephen's quotes, the best time to learn how to swim is not in a storm. No, that's the wrong time. You're too late. You should have learned before. So learn to do things before you need them. Anticipate what you'll need and get it ready before it's needed. That way you're always like steps ahead of, ahead of the curve, as it were. I think that's what you're trying to paraphrase.
I hope our social media platforms can capture that so that it stays there. Whenever they get to NSSF, they can see it and say, you need to do what you have to do for when you will need it, so that it reminds young people to do what they can at the moment. One day they will need it. So thank you so much, Elijah and Emma. Now over to you, Stevens Mwanje. We are having Julian Nayebare, who's saying good morning. Thank you so much for this expo so far. This goes to all of you, but I think Stevens, you will answer it on our behalf. I am pursuing the Bachelor's of Science in Accounting.
Yes.
You being the accountant, and finance at UCU, but I am as well a passionate interior designer. But I don't know how I can tap into the other passion or manage the two. Any advice on how I can do the two and succeed in both?
Well, what's her name again?
It's called Julian Nayebare.
Julian, I like the way she's really thinking and planning for what she wants, because if you go back to the basics, the degree that she's training in is already setting up to do a good business for herself. But like I said, and I think everyone is saying the same, the employment world has changed. You're going to find less and less employers who want you on full time seated there to do a job from 8 to 5. Right now, what the employer needs from you is, I give you an assignment and do it. Have plenty of time, going back to what Emma was saying, you have plenty of time to plan for your business and make it work. You have the tools, like you say, Elijah said, that team these days has it easy. Every time I go to my mobile phone, I see so many people I've never heard of selling things to me, and sometimes I end up buying, sometimes I don't buy. And the platforms are there free of charge. All you need to do is to know how to organize yourself. If I come back to my team again, I want to come back home. Before you sit here, your corner office as the head of department, and then the managers seated in their strategic places, and everyone is in view. You know you are supposed to do A, B, C, D today, and everything is moving like clockwork. Now, I take more than a month without seeing some people in my department, and even just talking to them on phone rather than on WhatsApp, because all I need is that delivery. I don't care whether you do it at midnight or you do it at 8 a.m. or whether you spent the whole day doing your hustle in town, but as long as at the end of the day what you're supposed to deliver is there, that's the key thing. So going back to her, I think that's how she should organize herself. Let her do her course, but let her not lose that passion. Just learn how to organize yourself. And I think both Emma and Elijah have articulated this very well. And eventually she's going to do that business if she really likes it, and it's going to grow big if she has the passion and the drive.
But maybe she could be wondering, as an accountant, do I have time to go to people's homes and do interior designing? Because it takes quite some time. How do you manage that?
Okay, I have a friend who is doing exactly that, and that friend also happens to be an accountant. And she has structured her business in such a way, she spends the weekdays in the evenings, looking for the business and doing the designs which she sends to the clients. And then she has dedicated her weekends to go and do that work. Actually, what she has negotiated with the employer, knowing the number of days, leave days she has, every Friday she's on leave. As part of her leave. So she has Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to do this and go into the people's houses and do this. And Monday to Thursday, she's also working diligently for the employer, and she's doing this comfortably.
All right.
So I think she can.
Managing their time,
Yes,
balancing it out,
exactly.
and planning for it.
Exactly.
All right. Maybe anyone could just volunteer to answer these. Chirumira Hussein says, how do I get access to free online courses? Because whichever site I visit, I'm asked to pay.
But YouTube, start with YouTube.
Yes.
There is like endless lessons on YouTube. No one asks you to pay on YouTube. All you need is data. I mean, I could think of endless options, so it depends on which direction he wants to take. But there is so much free content. You know, I think that the internet, democratization of knowledge is good, but people then take it for granted because people are built to think premium. So then they overlook what is available because they feel like, you know, what is premium is what is right. Today, you can learn anything. I can learn to cook if I really decide to do it on YouTube for free.
Yeah.
And that's just YouTube.
Yes.
That's not the entire, you know, content on the web. So I don't think there is an excuse that you need paid knowledge.
Absolutely. And maybe...
Adding to that, probably, even when you go to now, quite a number of universities, including the top-notch universities, have got free sites, websites where they are offering these courses. You just have to take a little bit time and search, like Elijah said. Because if you know what you want, it's there, plenty of it. And most of the books, you can find them freely available on the internet, all the books they use at university.
And actually, to add to what Elijah and Stevens have said, I remember at the start of this year, I took on French classes. And we had this sponsorship from the French embassy. But the time you spend in class is not enough for you to learn a language. So I took it to my YouTube. Don't ask me to speak in French. I'm getting there. But I took my time to YouTube because there's so much content. There's so many people that are talking about how to greet in French, how to interact in French. So when you say it's very untrue, I could add and say there's so much content online that you can get. Just go to YouTube, whatever you want to learn, you type it in and it will come. We even have Google, Mr. Google. You just say, I would like to learn this, then you have all the options. So get to your Google, get to YouTube, you'll find all the content that you need there. Now, do remember that we are giving away prizes. We love to, NSSF is generous, so we are giving out some goodies, and you just have to answer a few questions. Now, yesterday we asked you to share with us your thoughts on the key aspects of that had stood out for you, highlights of the event. So that's one of our questions. We asked, what was the key takeaway from you from day one? From us, or from day one yesterday, purposing new ideas and opportunities beyond the university degree. Go to our social media platforms, answer that question, use the hashtag, and we'll be right there to pick you out, and we'll let you know when and how you can receive your presents. Now, I'll be also letting you know of the second question that will guarantee that you win again. But all you have to understand is whatever you do in this expo, you get a present. Every day we are giving out presents to 100 students. More questions to our panelists. I am Lubega Benjamin. I'm from Makerere University, the College of Engineering. I have a business that I started, but I find hard time in marketing and increasing the velocity of cash flow during the school times. I really fail to balance with the school timetable that gets us so occupied, hence the business gets so slow and dormant. I'm seeking for advice on how to handle such an issue. Who would like to take this question up? Okay, thank you.
So first of all, that's really the right thing to do. And that's a good problem. Like, good problems are opportunities. So it's good that you see that first of all, there is a real opportunity because he's not complaining that the business doesn't work. He's complaining about managing demand and load on his time. So that's a good thing. Now, what you realize fairly quickly is that you can only go so far alone, right? So he needs a co-founder. He really needs a co-founder. You need a business partner, right? So when you're looking for a business partner, look for someone that is going to complement you. So if you're struggling with time or struggling with availability in a certain window, then look for someone that will be available during that window. Maybe they'll have the reverse problem. So perhaps you study in the evening and he studies in the day. So look for someone that will complement. Second, he's very aware of his own gaps. So he says he's struggling with selling. So already you know that you're good at certain parts of the business and you're not necessarily good at others. And that's totally okay. You're not going to be great at everything. In fact, don't even try that because you will start sucking at everything. So it's good that he can pick out, he has the awareness to pick out that I'm not good at this part of the business that is important. So when you're looking for that business partner and co-founder, make sure you're testing for that. So test for availability when you're not, and test for the skill set where you're weak, right? So you have your areas where you're strong, let this person bring strengths in your weak areas.
Yes.
So that then together you're going to make a good team on availability and strength of the business. But
Right.
that's the right thing to do for him.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope that question has properly been answered for you. More questions, and I think I'm going to give this to you, Emma Mutsha. Rashid Pandey says that I am Pandey. I want your advice on what kind of soft skills are more important for me as a finalist student.
First thing is, when you get into any situation, you should be able to sell yourself. Are you confident? Do you know what value you bring to the table? Because I think we've been schooled to say as a job, as you're looking for an opportunity or a job, you're seeking or you're begging for, you're hoping that they'll like you. But like Elijah keeps saying, he's looking for someone who will save him time, who will be self-driven, So can you reflect that in your demeanor? And what do you do to do that? Step back and say, in this opportunity or in this job, what are they looking for? What is that one thing that will unlock value for them? Can I take time to do the research and figure out how my competences, my experiences, whatever I have, the course I've done this for this organization? And if there's no match, disqualify yourself before going there, because sometimes too many rejections also butter you and you feel you lose your confidence. So just come to the table with the value that you are going to bring. It even could be in the way you speak. So when there's opportunities to stand up and speak and do a debate, practice. I was saying, utilize your school to do these things. Practice that confidence. I remember we used to go for debates when we were in high school, and we'd be going to Namilyango. And it is hot, but you're wearing a sweater and buttoning up because you don't want to show your many roles. And we had that kind of identity kind of crisis at that time. But when you stood up and you had prepared well, and you realize people are listening to you and actually, understanding what you're saying, then your confidence, rose up a bit. And the next time you may be scared, but you'd put yourself out there and volunteer to do it again until you got confident, and then your body image really didn't matter because you were confident that what you were saying was good enough. So practice your confidence even in the spaces that you are. Growing up, I grew up in church, so youth leader, even attempted at preaching. But again, put yourself out there so that you can build that confidence, build that being able to sell yourself as part of your preparation for yourself. Because there are people who are brilliant, but from their demeanor, you have to pull them out to get to that special person. And it's not to say it's bad to be a quiet, reserved person. I mean, you can see the difference between Stephen and me. Yeah. Stephen is your quiet and reserved. I'm not sure about it. So that's not the problem. I mean, who you are is good. Whatever God has made you is good, but just be able to present yourself and to be able to sell yourself. If you can't sell yourself, then who will sell you?
Yeah, absolutely. So they have to work towards selling themselves. Yeah. So remember, the event is sponsored by NSSF and NMG, but also we are giving away a lot of goodies. We're not making it so easy. So we want to ask you again, our second question: who are the speakers for tomorrow's event? Do go to our social media platforms and let us know. Who are the 2 speakers for tomorrow's event? Use the hashtag NSSF Expo 2021 and we'll be right there to pick you out and single you out and give you your presents. And we'll let you know when and how. But please keep these questions coming through. We are very excited to have these questions from you. It shows that they are listening and following, not so? And we have Mercy now Pascal who says, to Mr. Elijah, now after campus, what was your personal motivation that pushed you to do what you currently do?
Okay,
Money.
Gosh, man, that's a deep question.
Yeah.
It requires like an answer for such a long time. I think that first of all, I have tested how hard life can be, and I was determined to simplify my life. Like I didn't want to go back to hard times. And that was clear for me. In fact, for me and my brother, it's kind of a bit personal. So I can't give too many details. Maybe he'll inbox me and I'll tell him my story. But that's the truth. So I don't come from I come from a broken family, let me put it that way. And many people do. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And the weird thing about families that break, in fact, most entrepreneurs have that in common, is they kind of place their kids in a very unique situation. So you learn to survive fairly quickly. So I think I'd just tested a bit of that, and I was determined to kind of create my own destiny. And I knew that whatever happened in the past did not have to define myself and the future that I wanted. And it's actually true for me and my brother. Now he moved to the UK, so he's not based here anymore. But I remember we used to work ourselves crazy, really, not to go back to the past. And that led to, one opportunity, you push yourself to the next. So when I started out myself, my brother is much older than me. We have many years between us. He helped me start my first business, True African, with $300. Gave me $300, and he gave me a computer. And for some reason, he was convinced that I was things that people didn't see. So he made me believe that I was meant to be an entrepreneur. And really, you remember what I said about conviction? Mm-hmm. He was so sure. It felt like he was so sure that it was just going to work. And I became sure as a result. So I think that is what made me take the first steps, knowing that there were very few people that were going to come to save you. And if you didn't really do it, you knew where you're going to end up. Like, it was really clear because you had tested that in the past. So I was just determined not to go back there. And obviously, as you start working, you then see different views of life, and your motivation could change from one point to the other. And my motivation has certainly changed over time. But at the beginning, it was just that, that push that my own life experience had given me, and the sheer determination not to go back. Like, I was like, no, this can't be how life is meant to be. Surely people can do better than this, and we kind of had each other. So me and my brother had this thing of encouraging each other, and for some reason maybe we're naive, but we're very confident in ourselves, and we're children.
Yeah.
But that confidence kind of helped. So I knew, first of all, that I was not hireable. I had no experience. I had no qualifications. So I knew that I wasn't going to ask for a job. I knew that I had to start something myself. So that company that ended up becoming True African had started, just like I told you, with one PC and $300 and in a movie shop, actually, somewhere on Entebbe Road. But, that ability to pitch and say, I will create my experience. If the world requires that, I can create it. And over time, then you realize, oh, actually, I don't really even need, that mainstream job. Because what are these things that come from formal jobs? Is there a way you can make that happen if there is no formal job? And one thing led to another, and suddenly I got these people interested in True African, and they invested. And so after they invested, the company had a bit of money, and they brought a lot of experience as well. Then we signed this exclusive deal with MTN for 3 years. And MTN back then was like a market leader by far. So we're like on every billboard, every radio station, every TV station. It was the True African website and 197 were more popular than Monitor and New Vision combined. We had more traffic than those sites combined. We're like number one by far. But it had happened. The beginning was just that. It was just the sheer, resolve that we're going to make something out of our lives. This thing is not going here. And for some reason, that momentum just carried through, and we kept going. Yeah, so I don't know if that's a good answer. Like I said, it's kind of personal.
Perfect.
People have different stories. For me, that was my realization, that very few people are out there looking to save you, right? So if you don't do it yourself, you can very easily end up, in a certain way, and it helps for you to have tested that life because you know exactly how it feels. Now, if you don't want to go back there, then you'll have all the motivation needed. These days, the last thing I'll say, in corporate life, what people say is that mortgages and school fees, expensive schools, are enough motivation to keep you grounded, right? Because you know exactly what will happen if you screw up. So don't slack. Like, once you have that motivation, wherever it comes from, for me, it was my own personal experiences and my family, and we could take it offline with that person if they want to know more. Others, it might just be a huge mortgage that you've gotten yourself into that will pump sense into your head that, if you don't work hard, you can lose 20 years of work. And I mean, if that's not enough to scare you to work, you probably deserve what's coming. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Elijah. I think that was a fantastic response. Finding something that has a personal touch to you, that drives you from your own experience, from your past, will drive you further to achieve more of the things that you want to achieve. So they should look at what motivates them. What is that one thing they want to change in their lives? Thank you so much, Elijah. Now, looking at more questions, Dennis says, says that, hey, I'm Komakech from Gulu City. Very delighted to have people from Gulu watching us today. I am blind, but I have a degree from Makerere University, social work and social administration. How can the panelists help me today, since I have a lot of skills, including communication, computer skills, among others? I am acquiring more skills from this expo, but how will I utilize them if employers are not really willing to hire me and my so many other colleagues? Who would like to take this on? Emma?
Yeah. Attempt.
Yes.
So different organizations have been thinking about diversity and inclusion. How do our hiring policies actually support people who are different, if I can call it that way? When I was going to university, the girls had 1.5, and that maybe helped us to get the first choice of your degree. Because at that time there were lots fewer girls going to university. So how do we as employers actually to support people who are different, just to build our diversity? It's something we've always been, talking about, but I think it's time to actually put it into practice. I don't think we are there yet, and let's the conversation continue so that we can get there. Because I remember I think, Elijah, we had a guy that guy knew everybody in the bank's voice. Yeah, he was amazing. You'd call him and he was called Sylvester, I remember. You'd call him and say, Emma, wasi voted is over. Like, he even knew your children, because he had to, I think you become more specialized in your utilizing of your hearing, your capabilities, and his customer service was excellent. He retired, so he did, I think he worked at Barclays for like 30 years. So I think there's space for us as employers to actually build our diversity and inclusion, and to make sure that we do not differentiate, the people who are a bit different from others. So I think let's continue the conversation, and let's look for that opportunity for this particular person, because he's reached out.
Yes.
And so it's up to us to find that opportunity for him.
For them. All right. We'll make sure I give the contacts to the people that can help. Yeah. Stevens, we are now coming to you. Emmanuel says that, thank you so much for the expo. It is really doing us great. I really need advice. I am doing internship with a certain tax consultancy firm, but I really find a problem with my field supervisor, who usually wants me to work contrary to the tax laws, and the company supports him. But this act may lead the company to a dilemma in the long run, so I'm now perturbed about what to do.
Yeah, ethics. That is something, if you are going to progress, that you should never compromise about. If you're really, really convinced that your supervisor is doing something unethical and the organization is behind him, then you're in the wrong place. Whatever they do, and if they mess up, and you are your name with it, with them too. So if you feel that you're in a position and you're not able to have them see it your way, it's best you walk.
Walk away?
Yeah, it's best you walk away. Because you are just an intern, and if you say the supervisor and then his boss, which I presume probably the proprietor, are behaving in an unethical manner, there's nothing much you're going to do about it other than walk away. And if it's illegal, you also have the option to whistleblow, because that's how it should be. Because eventually, when everything is done, what is left with is your own personal brand. And now people are going to look at you and say, is this a person I can trust? Yeah? For example, I've worked with Elijah, and I say, if I go to Elijah and I ask, I already know whether I can trust him or I can't trust him. You have to have that reputation. If you don't have that reputation, if you don't build it from the grassroots, you get lost along the way. So that's my simple advice.
Elijah Chitaka, what would you say to this student, just to pick your thoughts? They're working with a company, and Stevens is saying just walk away.
Same thing. Ethics. It's one of those things that is just difficult to reverse. And you see, when you're in that position, these people have more business acumen than you. So you can easily be set up to take the fall, unknowingly. So there are some situations that are beyond you. And like that's one thing I would want people to know, that very few things are worth your reputation. Very few things are worth your peace, right? So sometimes it's better to walk away from certain opportunities or certain situations. If it's a situation like that where you're pretty junior, this sounds like culture, this is how they do it, I mean, chances are if anything blows out of proportion, you're going to be the one to take that fall. So I would agree with Stevens. You walk away. Walk away. I think that, first of all, I am optimistic. I'm an optimistic person, but many people don't change. That's the honest truth. Like, some things are really difficult to change, especially ethical issues. They are really difficult to change. So if you've got that signal early on and you're just starting out in your career, your system is trying to tell you something. Yeah, I don't think you would start off on the wrong foot. I think do what Stevens is saying. Walk away, and another opportunity will come.
Will come. Emma Mugisha, what would you say?
I would say the same thing. Your values are yours and yours to keep. And you should go back home and sleep at night. Yes. You can't carry other people's bad manners. And again, this is probably a bit of experience you've gained with that internship. You can find another one.
Thank you so much. I was very deliberate to ask all the speakers, because I wanted Emmanuel to know that if three executives, people that have gone through all these different processes are saying walk away, then it is the right thing to do. So remember, like Elijah said, you can easily take the fall because they can easily defend themselves. Now, Arnold Semogedere says that I am Semogedere Arnold from Bara University. My question is to you, Mr. Elijah Chitaka. What criteria do you use when you're making hard decisions in life? Conviction. Over to you, Elijah.
These people are asking really tough questions. It depends on the nature of the decision.
Yes.
What's at stake? I think it's kind of hard to have a one-size-fits-all. So, examples of decisions. So, and they say, let's say we're talking about a business investment. Like, how would I make a decision to invest or not to invest? I think I would take a very different approach from, say, selecting a school for my child. Two extremes, right? So what I'm trying to explain is that I think that it depends on what is at stake, and I don't think you're going to find a one-size-fits-all. Different situations will require you to apply different analysis to get to the right thing. Going back to what Emma just said, your values are yours to keep. Like, know who you are and know what's important to you. Your values are just the things that you value most, right? So I personally value peace. Like, I would walk away from money for the sake of my peace. Many times.
Yeah.
Even if it meant walking away from like a really well-paying job for the sake of my peace, because I've learned over time that nothing is worth that, right? So in certain personal situations, I think fall back to who you really are, fall back on the inside of yourself and say, is this something I really put emphasis on? Is this a non-negotiable for me? If it's a non-negotiable for me, then that decision becomes, pretty easy. If it then passes that test, now you're going to test for whatever situation, whatever the situation requires. Is it a business transaction? Is it going to require too much time? When I left, when I left Google to come back here, I mostly left because of family. Like, Google is a great brand. It's a great company. All techies grow up wanting to work there, right? And my mom was like, but you're so crazy. Isn't that the company that is the #1 in the world? Because they read all these reports of who is the best employer, dynamic brands, and it's innovative. So you're working there, and suddenly you want to come back home. Why? But I mean, I had a daughter. She was here. I'd moved countries. I'd attempted to relocate. Family didn't quite, go well because relocations are hard. And that job was it was great, but it had a lot of travel. I used to do about 16 countries every quarter. So the truth of the matter is, even if I relocated anyone, it didn't mean that I was going to be there. It just meant that you would be at the hub, and maybe I'll get a chance to see you on one of those days as I pass through. But I remember I made that decision when I was heading to an event in Cape Town, in like the middle of the night, one of those ungodly flights. And it dawned on me, a friend of mine called Omega, she's a singer. She had told me, but Elijah, that age 0 to 5 won't come back. And if you're not in your child's life during that age, I know you're going to regret it. And that thing kept ringing, right? So as I sat there, I thought to myself, when does this end? So what am I looking for anyway? What's important? Like, why do people work hard? So if I'm working so hard to make a great life for this little one, so why am I not there? When am I going to create this great life? When I have no input into your upbringing? So I think you can fall back to your value system and the things you care about, and test and see. At some point, you can't just chase money. At some point, you have to fall back to your life. Why is it important? What would you use it for anyway? Sometimes those things are already there. So why are you chasing them? So it's tough to give you a one-size-fits-all on how to make decisions, but I think your internal value system is a good starting place. Want to see peace, and I love peace. I would choose peace. And I also like presence. So I guess it goes back to my own personal upbringing, but I love presence. I want to be, a present parent. If my daughter wants me at school, I want the option to be there. And the people I've worked with know that's actually non-negotiable, right? Like, I will attend exhibitions at school, and if she says, hey, I'm going to have, I'm participating in this dance, and it's at 3 p.m., it would really have to be a very, very, very serious reason why I can't be there. So I have learned that some of those things are important to me, and very few other things are more important. And sometimes once you explain to those around you what is important to you, going back to conviction, they actually would be supportive. You'd be shocked, but they'll be supportive. People have this thing that your work and your life can never connect, and your employer is not really interested in your life, but it's untrue. It's actually untrue. If you truly deliver value, you'd find that even employers care about your life. Because if your life is not in order, you're not going to be in a state of mind to provide value.
Yes.
So they will be supportive. What I've found is that they'll be quite supportive on those things that seem personal. Sort out your life, because that's your foundation. So go back to your values, sort out your life, and you'll perform at work. So don't be afraid to say, this is non-negotiable for me, or you're going to hire me, but you know this is how I work, and this is really important. So if a time comes, of course, I won't screw the organization. I'm a responsible person. I also have a reputation to protect, and I truly want to create value, right? So I'm not going to take you for granted, but we'll find a situation that works, right? So go back to your values, go back to the inside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Elijah. I believe that question has been very well answered. Over to you, Stevens Mwanji. This is Peace from IUIU. I'm aspiring to become the CFO. What does it?
That's a tricky one. You know, there are so many ways how you can get where you are. Of course, you have to have that dedication and intent, but also luck plays a part. I mean, virtually everybody who's been somewhere, there will be some luck which plays a role, but you also have to know that you create your own luck, that you can create your own luck. So this takes us back to where we started from, or what all of us is the focus. Know what you want to do and where you want to be and how to achieve it. Then make that deliberate efforts to work towards it. Now, being the CFO does not necessarily mean that you are going to be the best accountant. Basically, my team, in my team, there are quite a few who are better accountants than me. But they are not necessarily the CFO. You have to look at so many other aspects that you have to learn. You have to know how to manage teams. You have to work on your emotional intelligence. You have to work on your communication skills. You have to work on stakeholder management. You have to take deliberate efforts. And now there are so many ways now. Those are the things that you would not necessarily learn in school. But those are the things you set out to deliberately do for yourself and improve yourself. Emma talked about how she taught herself to speak in public. And rightly she observed, I'm basically an introverted person, but I've deliberately forced myself to know how to speak in public. But given the opportunity, I'll be very comfortable to sit back and let anybody else speak. But those are the things you go out and teach yourself and learn how to do. One of those lecturers in, I think it was Wharton Business School, where we've done quite a number of courses, was telling that one of the key things you have to do to know and how to do for yourself, to have that elevator pitch. He called it elevator pitch, that if you entered an elevator with your CEO and you know you have 2 minutes to put across what you want, how are you going to utilize those 2 minutes? Because you have entered the elevator 2 minutes, you have the CEO, you have something to sell to him, and you have to sell it to him in 2 minutes. And you know he's a busy person. When he moves out of the elevator, he's moving to other. So you always have to have that elevator pitch ready, because you never know when that opportunity is going to strike. So as you are waiting for a lucky break, you also have to create your luck and do so many other things about personal improvement. You have, of course, you also have to have the skill.
Yes, but maybe just to pick your thought, don't you think it's important for young people or like Peace,
Yes.
to ask herself, what is the intention? Why exactly do I want to be the CFO? Is it just the position or the services that I can provide?
Exactly. That's why you say you have to have the intent. Why do you want to? Some people get into positions and they don't know
What to do?
why they're there or why they got there, and they just move on day to day. But if your intent is to be the CFO, then you have to know that I need to be changing something, either something in my profession, or if you are targeting CFO in a particular organization, either something in that organization, or it will give me the ability to change something in my society or in my family. There has to be something that is driving you at the back of your mind, and that's you. It's only you who can know what that is. I mean, so if you come as CFO, and then the next question is, so what? Because if you are in a place, then you have to show that I was there. Eh? So eventually when you leave, have you left a legacy? Is there something that everyone should be able to look back on and say, yes, Emma was here, Elijah was here, and this is what they did. I can give an example. Elijah just left us just about a year ago. But he left a legacy, 3 years. I mean, that's the kind of thing.
Yes.
So going back to her, yes, correct.
All right, thank you so much, Stevens. I graduated from with my bachelor's degree in mass communication in 2014. I went with an insurance company in 2015 as a customer relations officer, front desk, could call it that. It's 5 years now, and I'm still in the same role. I have gone back to school. I've done a certificate in insurance and a postgraduate diploma in marketing management, but I'm still at the front desk earning the same salary. This doesn't in any way motivate me because I feel I should by now be in the midst. My situation makes the question of where do you see yourself in 5 years, commonly asked during interviews, irrelevant. Kindly advise on what I can do to grow my career-wise. Thank you. This is Naivari Lillian. Who would like to take this very interesting question on?
Dangerous advice. So let me tell you what I believe. And my former team knows that, especially when you're starting your career.
Yeah.
If you choose to start it in corporate, I have a 2-year rule. If you stay in one place for 2 years, you've stayed too long. Because your initial objective when you're starting out to build your career is exposure, is a network, is varied experience. Those things are very difficult to build from one environment.
Yes.
How your business network is basically the people that know you for what you're really good at. Now, if those people, let's say you're even in a big company and it's NSSF, let's say there are 600 people, they're still not enough. You need to have more people know you for what you're really good at. How will the world know? No one, like, the world is not here, right? So if she stayed 5 years, she stayed too long. Now, the next question people like this ask is, so should I move if I don't have an alternative?
Yes.
My answer actually is yes, right? So create some discomfort in your life because it will get you thinking. If you're really keen to grow, Emma knows this. In the world of banking, we actually used to say this at in previous banks where we worked. The quickest way to grow was to leave. Because then people would realize, crap, this guy was really useful. What do we do to get him back? You'll never come back at the same level.
Yes.
Right? So in the banks, it was actually common knowledge. Remember, Emma, so it's the same everywhere. Right? So the trouble is that people obsess and people are so afraid. And when you ask them, they don't even know what they're afraid of. So you've been in one place for 5 years and you know that I should not be here, but you stay. So why are you staying? Leave. 2 years. I have a 2-year rule. For anyone that is starting entry-level positions, don't do the same for more than 2 years. If you do a really good job, the good thing is that you're going to have people that believe in you everywhere you've been. And your name will come up in places. Right? So finding the next thing should not be as hard as you imagine it's going to be.
Yes.
Now, the trouble with staying in places is that you actually create reverse fear in the employer because now you've become too good at this thing. Now I'm thinking, I move her, then what? I'll create gaps for myself. Let me just leave her there. She's really good at that. So it just becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It will leave you there because you're good. You're good at that level. Why would I now create more work for myself? I move you, I have to find a new good person.
Yeah.
You have to decide. As a young person, 2 years max.
Can I summarize it and say it's important for young people to put timelines on what they do?
And specifically 2 years. Because if you put less, you have nothing to show.
Yes.
That's dangerous. You're very unstable.
Emma, do you agree? It's okay to disagree.
No, no, no. And the reason why I
Yeah.
agree is that many times, when you get a job, you're so grateful that you got a job. So you hang on to it for dear life. But if you don't get yourself uncomfortable, you won't. Our minds, that they get creative when we are uncomfortable. But if you're, even if it's an entry-level job, but it has covered your basics, and you get comfortable, then your mind won't. But in those 5 years, how many people have walked past that desk? What's that network that you've built? Maybe your next job is not in that insurance company, it's somewhere else. So disrupt yourself, and then the opportunities will find you.
So be comfortable with being uncomfortable. What are your thoughts, Stevens?
Well, I had a CEO in the bank who used to ask a question in interviews. At first I could not understand it, but I eventually got to understand where I would come. You always ask the interviewee, have you ever been fired from your job? And then, of course, the next question will be, was it for ethics or whatever? But the thing is, it's like he was driving at what my two colleagues are saying that, I mean, if you have ever been fired from a job and you've managed to work your way back, it's that you've learned how to disrupt yourself and not take everything for granted. But then the other thing that I'm reading from this situation, again, takes us back to the conversation we've been having. Probably she's also they call it these days side hustle. She has put all her time in that job and it's now becoming boring, and probably she also put her imagination and innovation cap to sleep. There must be something else she can do to fill up the time. You should do some side hustle. Eventually this job...
And get some customers from
Yes, and then that will give her the perspective, probably, and say, why am I here when I can do this? But all her concentration is on getting promoted. And promotion is like, it's narrow at the top. There are very few opportunities at the top. So there will always be more people at the bottom. Yes.
Elijah and Emma that put timelines, right? Put some timelines. Quit. Elijah specifically saying 2 years are enough to be in one place. Stevens is saying, why don't you start a side hustle, Lillian? Why don't you put your mind to innovate something new as you wait for a better opportunity? Not so. So she shouldn't just sit at the front desk for the rest of her life. I think if it were me, I would say, let me utilize the people that come through.
Yes.
Every single time you're coming to ask for something, I'll pick out like a lipstick. I'm selling lipsticks.
Perfect.
Before you know it, you're an entrepreneur, you have a bigger shop. You start small and you grow big. So I hope, Lillian, that question has been answered, and you've picked some relevant knowledge from our discussion on what you can do moving ahead, either to quit and make them want your value, or start something on the side from the little money that you've been getting. Now, Emma, this is going to go to you. This is Evelyn Businje that is saying that this has been such a great session. The question goes to Mrs. Mujisha. Emma, what is the hardest challenge you have faced as a lady in the working environment? And what did you have to do to solve it?
Where I had hit the ceiling
Yes.
in Barclays, Uganda, and I made and there was an opportunity for you could rotate, you could do exchanges between countries. So I got an opportunity to do 2 years in Kenya, and then I sat back and said, but now my husband has a good job in Uganda. Our children are young. In fact, I'd just had a baby then. My 9-year-old now was a few months. I go and leave them. He can't resign and follow me. So the decision for me was, at that point, what's more important for you, the family or the career? So I decided to go back home and say, Mr. Mgisha, let us have a conversation. This is the opportunity. These are the pros. These are the cons. What do we do? Luckily for me, he's very supportive of my career. And the one thing he told me was, I don't want 10 years down the line for you to remind me that you missed an opportunity. So you people go. I will visit as much as I can. So I packed up the 3 children and we went off to Nairobi. And those 2 years have defined my career because, one, I proved that I can survive in a different environment. Not even to prove to so many other people, but more to yourself, and therefore build your confidence that in whatever job you really are a leader, and therefore you can survive. In another market, you can still sell. You know, Kampala is quite small. Every office I go to, I either went to school with you, or I went to or I go to church with you. You can make a connection and figure out how to sell. But if you go to a different country, it opens up your ability to prove to yourself your self-worth. But it was so good for the family in a way because then my children moved from the normal school to international, and even when we came back, we realized we couldn't go back to the regular curriculum, and they've been in international since then. But more importantly, my salary scale changed because now I was coming back from being an expatriate. So whoever wanted me back home had to
pay a little more.
Step up a bit. So in the end, it was the best decision we made as a family. It had its challenges, obviously. Like I said, my daughter was 7 months when we left. One of those days on a plane with her, she sees this guy with specs and goes, "Daddy!" And then I'm thinking, okay, Emma, time to go back home. The child doesn't even know her father because he's this guy who kind of comes around every other month, and he wears specs. So that was an indicator that it was time to come back home. But yeah, that particular decision was difficult because, we have these things in our heads that we're into long distances. They create, rifts, and then, some other chick might, all these things.
There.
So all those fears that that you have, and yet really, some other chick were to fix themselves. They fix themselves right under your
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a really difficult decision. I appreciate the fact that we could sit at the table and weigh our pros and cons as a family, make that decision, and it has worked out for us in the long run.
I do not know about the students watching us today, but I have a feeling part of it was to do with the sexual advances that happen to the young girls looking for jobs. I do not know from your own perspective or experience you've gone through that, and if you have, how did you maneuver? How did you overcome it?
So for me, it hasn't been so much the sexual advances,
Yes.
but generally condescending attitude really gets me. So in one of the jobs, one time I went away on maternity leave and came back, and we had a new boss. So he walks into our office and says, "Where is this small piece of shit talking about my boss?" And I'm like, "Hey, Kati, if my boss is a small piece of shit,
What about
in the line of, in the hierarchy, where am I?" And for me, it was not something I was going to take.
Yes.
I may be 5 times more junior than it. He was the CEO of the organization. But bad manners is bad manners. So I called up our regional boss and said, "Hey, boss, I've just come back from maternity leave. I was away when this guy joined. He does not know me. How he walks in and calls my boss a small piece of shit. This is not my value. And I may love my job, but no." So our regional boss called him and gave it to him. So, but this guy had bad manners. Like all the words we knew in his language were swear words. But whenever he would come to our office, he'd say, oh, here we walk around eggshells. I said, yes, you respect me. I may be younger than you, I may be junior, but you don't go against my values, and I'm not going to be party to your, to your bad manners. So that could be sexual advances again. You may be junior, but you allow people to treat you badly. And if you actually stand up for yourself, people will say, okay, around this one, they may even fire you. Better they fire you, please, than you selling your soul to the devil, if I can put it that way. So, again, it goes back to your values. What is your worth? And your worth should be able to give you that.
Yes. Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you, Elijah. Thank you, Stevens. Very interesting responses. We thank you all that sending in your questions. It clearly shows that you're following and you're listening in to what our speakers are saying. We're going away from your experience back to our timelines. You mentioned 2 years, and we have a question from Mark Otim, who says that I am from MOOPS. Mine is to Elijah. Well, it is good to put timelines, but then when you keep jumping from one place to another in a space of 2 years each, what then do you say when they ask in an interview, when they ask why you left your old job? Because you have to convince the employer you are not an inconsistent person. Very interesting question. Over to you, Elijah. Take it away.
It goes back to your objective when you're starting your career. Let's start there, right? So
Yes.
take charge of your life. I've told you what you need when you're starting, right? So you need experience, you need exposure, you need to build a network. The one thing I wouldn't compromise is you need to bring solid value to the table, right? Even in that short time. So there should be no discussion about what value am I going to get from this person. Your track record should be clear.
Yes.
So maybe your stay will not be long, but the value should be guaranteed, right? So the people that are asking these types of questions, I actually think that young people are even worse than me. Of course, as you go up the ladder, 2 years is a short time. I think 2 years is very short, especially in complex organizations now. You will spend about 6 months just learning the organization and trying to figure out, people will say, what strategic objectives are, but indeed they are different. So for you to scan the environment and decipher what's really important before you align yourself to say, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on. In complex organizations, as you go up the ladder, it becomes more difficult. So I think the 2 year timeline won't work at different levels. I'm saying when you're starting, and hear it from me, right? When you're starting, the thing that you're trying to build is exposure. Because first of all, you don't even have any real evidence that your first job is your true calling, right?
Yes.
That it's the optimal way you're going to create value for customers, for yourself, and everyone. You really don't know what you don't know, right? So give yourself the benefit of doubt. Explore a bit. Explore. In innovation strategy, there are 2 axes. So there is exploration and exploitation. Explore before you exploit, right? So try and figure out, in these types of environments, where do I thrive best? The only non-negotiable, in my view, is value. Whenever you say yes to an opportunity, give it 120%. Like, do whatever it takes for you to create impact. Because every job you do should create the next. Every job you do should create the next. Now, if a question like that comes up, don't be afraid to tell people what you're doing. Don't be. Don't give people answers you think they want to hear. Don't assume that I want to hear that you're so stable, you're going to stay here for the next 10 years. No. What I want is clarity. Sometimes what I want is just honesty.
Yes.
Because then I'll know how to engage you. If you're clear with me and you say, look, I moved from those roles because I went into the role looking for a specific experience, which I did. And in 2 years, this is what I managed to do. I'm looking for a new environment, and these are the things I'm working on, right? Going back to that question you asked about engaging your parents, it's the same thing. Be confident enough to bring to the table what you really believe. And say, look, this is what I think I'm going to achieve for you. Now, you can't promise someone 10 years of your life before you even get inside their company to know how they truly work. Yeah. Right? So if your timeline at that point, for the first 6 years of your career, should just be exposure, experience, and solid results in a short time, because the work you're doing at that level is not complex. You should deliver. Like, why aren't you delivering? You should just deliver. Be clear about that and say, look, I don't intend to stay very long.
Yeah.
Or if you feel that this is your home, you'd say, then I would look to grow within the organization. Be clear about that. If it's not, don't lie. Don't give answers that you feel people are interested in hearing. They'll make you frustrated. If you know at the back of your mind, I am not going to be here for 5 years, don't lie to them. Let them make the right decision. Give them all the data, let them make the right decision. But one thing should be clear, that if they give you the opportunity for however short a time, they should not regret on value.
Yes.
They will see real progress. Yeah.
So
May I add something?
yes, please.
Just look at it on the other side of the coin, by the way. Everyone knows now that Gen X and the Generation X and the Generation Z, which is coming to the market now, all employers now know that they are not going to stay. They are not going to stay for long. So you know that at most they'll give you 3 years.
Yeah.
So the employer is going to try their best to get the best out of you in 3 years. But if you feel and you are convinced, and like Elijah said, that this is where you want to be, make yourself so indispensable that the employer will give you the opportunity to grow within the organization. Because they know by nature, upbringing and everything, these are restless souls. To be in a place for 3-4 years is actually a long time. They will go. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. In other words, to our students, every single job that you do should be able to guide you on to the next one. So do not stay in one place for such a long time if you're not growing. I also know if you stay in one place when you're not growing from A to B, you're stuck on A, you get very demotivated. And this is why you start doing, you're coming to work late, they send you to do something, you don't want to do it. So it sort of takes away the value you're adding even to a company. Nakalema Jen, more questions, says that is it valuable for someone who has completed a diploma in accounting go for a CPA than a degree? Which one is more better? I think that's for you, Stevens.
I always find that interesting. People start with what they want to do. Give an example. We had oil, then everybody rushed off to do courses in oil and gas and whatever. 5 years down the line, totally useless to them. Then had procurement. Everyone rushed off to do procurement. But how many procurement officers the companies all employ? One, at most two. Here we are big, very big organization. We have probably 4 or 5. So the first thing you should do not rush to do a course because it's what is marketable. Rush to do a course because it is. So if you said you did a diploma in accounting, did you go to accounting to do a diploma just because it was what you wanted, it was there for you to do then? Or did you go to do it because that's what you want to do and you have got a clear path where you want to go? So path. Then you might as well continue in that course. But you can also strike 2 birds with 1 stone. For example, if you are doing SCCA, for a fact, after you have done up, I think, to level 2, you only have to do 1 other paper, dissertation, and you get a degree. At the same time, you also get professional qualification. So, yes, if that's what you are focused on doing, that's what you want to do that. But if you just want to do it because you have a diploma and you feel you should get a professional qualification, you get frustrated at the end and you won't like it. Focus on what you want first
Yes.
and then go.
Focus on what you want first and then move on. Well, we are still going on for the next 30 minutes, and we are very delighted that you're sending in your questions. I'm sure the panelists, you're eager, knowing that young people are actually listening. It encourages you that there are people paying attention to what you're saying. So keep these questions coming through for the next 30 minutes. We'll try as much as possible to send in the questions. We thank you for responding to them the best way possible. And for you, our students, we just want to remind you that you need an NSSF member. You need to be an NSSF member. So how you do it, please go to your Google app, Play Store. Yeah, Play Store as well, Apple Store, and download the NSSF Go app. You will need that number when Elijah is hiring you, or when Stevens is looking for people to recommend or to hire, when Emma is looking for people to employ. So you'll need that number. Go for it. But also today we are giving out lots and lots of goodies. Do follow our social media platforms for the questions, and we'll let you know when and how you can pick these gifts. Now, moving on to more of our questions here. Danny Kakura says that most of the companies in the world demand applicants to have experiences in that. So as a fresh graduate or university finalist, what can be done, or what are the ways we can follow to fulfill that requirement? Because by the time there are no experiences at all. I think you sort of answered it somehow, but maybe Elijah, you could talk about it because you talked about it just briefly.
So we talked about it already. Don't be misled to believe that credible experience is only that from established brands. That's what we said when we talked about this. What these people actually want is evidence that you understand how to navigate situations. Now, if you're pitching Stanbic or NSSF, they are not necessarily looking at you having Stanbic experience. There's only one Stanbic, right? But they're looking for a structure. They're looking at yours that if I place this person in this situation, they're probably going to successfully navigate, deliver value out of it, right? The one thing that I find, and going back to why people are really scared to leave their jobs, is people discount different types of experiences themselves before even employers discount it, right? They won't even package it. But you've spent, 2 years, 3 years working in a small family shop. You've gained so much experience. Maybe you even have sales experience because you've been moving product. But in your mind, that's not experience that counts. The truth is that it does, because business situations, it goes back to how that all humans want the same thing, irrespective of what social scale you're at. You really want the same thing. Happiness, you want success for your children, you want, those are the same things everyone wants. Maybe financial scale, someone is able to provide more than the other, but the true needs are the same. So at the back of experience, what employers are looking for are capabilities, is evidence that if you're placed in this situation, you can navigate it. So don't discount your experience. Have a big brand next to it. You make every opportunity count, right? If you're in a talking about that lady that started a laundry business, that's extremely valuable. Package it and put it down and say, for 2 years, I set up a small business. I built 100 customers. They were recurring. I had repeat contracts, very low churn rate. Yes. Articulate it. Because now, if you can do that alongside a big brand and say, I did it at Stanbic, okay, maybe it will carry more weight. But the truth is that that's what people want. People want to see evidence that if I put you in this situation, you can do that thing that you did, or even better. So don't discount it. Let these people not think that they need like a Google badge on their resume. No. At that point, you really just need evidence of I can navigate situations and create value. and maybe you did it at very small scale in a laundry business based on the suburb of your university, that's excellent. Package it and look for what these people want and show that that's what I achieved. I just achieved it at a different scale. Now you want me to scale up, but I know how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elijah. Please, speakers, do allow me to chip in and give my personal experience since we are speaking to the young people. I know I had personally initially wanted to be a lawyer, but you know there's the pre-entries. So, unlucky me, during the vacation, I did not follow up what was happening. You know, pre-entries are like more of general paper, really. So I didn't pass that test. So I looked at my second option, and that was journalism, and I had always loved singing. At university, I took up every single opportunity that came my way, whether I'm getting paid or not. I did an online TV. There was an online TV started by students. So I took it on, and the time I was employed, I always referred to it as like a presenter on an online TV station. What we did, interview people, sell their music to this and that. And it added value to me as a person compared to other people that were out of university saying, I was a journalist at Makerere University and that's it. So I think the opportunities are there, though the bigger problem is to allow to do internships for free. Yeah? They forget that there's that aspect of experience that is added to your CV that you can use. So I want Emma to briefly talk about, we talked about it yesterday, but the importance of having those internships, because most of the questions here are needed when you're getting into a job. What is that key aspect that you can say to encourage young people? If today you're doing internship in your final year, carry it on even if you're not getting paid. Would like to hear it from you.
I'll start with an example of an interview I did and used my mom's shop.
Yes.
It's been a seller. And I guess I got that selling experience from selling materials in my mom's shop. So I went for an interview at City for FX. Of course, now, wait, I had never done any dealing for FX. But the question was, if price is not a lever, that would you utilize to help make up their mind? Now, that was easy. Because for the many years and holidays that I'd been at the shop, my mom would tell you this is the last price. Figure how you sell. This one, the color matches with you. Now this one, you know, even model a bit. You had learned how to confidently get from a walk-in and actually get a sell done. And I was able to answer that question because of all the experience I'd picked up at my mom's shop. So the value of experience cannot be emphasized. And even if it's just walking into an organization and say, free labor, what do you need to be done? Just the discipline to wake up and go and deliver and translate a request into an output is experience enough that you can talk confidently through an interview. If you don't have that, one of the questions I was also once asked is, would you thrive in a strange place? Now, when I was at university, we had to do internship every long holiday.
Yes.
So one of actually the two internships I did with World Vision in Rakai, at that time I was at university, was at the height of AIDS. So the World Vision project in Rakai was looking after orphan children. And, you know, went to Rakai. I'd never been to Rakai. I didn't even know, you know how you go to our village, you pass Masaka, straight, you don't even go through Tumbara. I didn't even know the road going to Rakai. I just had the faith that I can go and thrive there and find a place to rent and work. And that experience gave me the confidence in myself that I can survive in a new place. Again, those are things you won't be taught in school because it's your confidence that you can do something and therefore you're able to speak about it authentically as opposed to try and create a situation that you've not been in because you've been asked the question. So find those internships. If it's part of your course, even better. You know, we've got an internship process at Stanbic, which is in partnership with MOBS. We take on, you know, interns every year. If that's part of your course, that's it.
Yeah.
Everybody is looking for free labor in this town. You be the free labor now to your future.
Yeah. Thank you so much. The other question that I've personally interacted with is they can't be working for free and they wake up and they let you go. That disappointment. It sort of works. It has happened to me personally, but I have heard young people talk about it. And in one of the questions, I will get it clearly, someone said they are scared of failing when they are turned away, when they are told no. That fear, how do you deal with it? Stevens.
That's a tough one. I mean, human beings, I think the way we are built, it's inbuilt. We have to survive all the time. You need to feel that you are wanted, you need to succeed and whatever. So very few people can deal with rejection normally. But also it's part of life, because it also teaches you a life lesson and how you can go about it. So in a way, if there's pretty nothing much you can do about it, but you just, how do you move on from there? That is the most important thing. Because anyone will tell you, if you are of a certain age, you have experienced so much periods or types of rejection. But you just have to learn how to get up, pick yourself up, and take the next step. Because you can't afford to sit down and fold yourself into a tight little and cry. So yes, that won't come once, it won't come twice, it won't come 3 times, it will keep on coming. But every time it comes, you just have to pick yourself up.
So pick yourself up and keep pushing on. Look for another internship place. If they also let you go, try again. Keep trying and trying and trying. This goes to Elijah, but in the meantime, most of the things I'm seeing, people want mentorship. Mentorship is key. To have someone that will tell you, do this differently. Here, you speak to this person, it will help you. So I don't know, you could help us with your social media platforms as we almost come to the end of our conversation, which I do not want to end, but your social media platforms on how people can reach out to you. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. Phone numbers may not be very much good to give out, but we would like to see how you can give us some bit of mentorship. Elijah Chitaka, this is to you. My question is, I think Arnold Semogedere, who says that what do you think is the main cause for most young people who want to be paid for availability but not productivity? And as you answer that, we want the solution to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, let me just wrap up what Stevens was saying. And I don't want to preach, because Emma said she already tried preaching, but fear actually doesn't come from a good place. Like, fear should be resisted. Now, I'm also spiritual. Fear is actually not us, right? So in any situation where you're faced with fear, you should resist it and it should flee. It doesn't come from, I will quote me, but I mean, God has not given you a spirit of fear. So where does fear come from? Fear does not come from a good place. So nothing else but fear. So teach yourself to resist fear, and teach yourself to be comfortable with. Okay, so compensation, and how is compensation changing? You know that theme that you talked about? I think that's one of the things that is going to change. Stevens talked about the giggling from this idea of full-time employment to employment on demand, to everyone becoming a service provider at some point, that companies will actually just have access and say, hey, I have this requirement, and whoever is available and is most aligned at that point would be the one to move on. So it will kind of naturally full-time employment to employment on demand. We've seen that in many sectors. Technology has enabled that. So a lot of things now are all on demand. You don't even build data centers anymore in our world. Just use what you need to use from the available capacity. It's good because it optimizes how the world utilizes. So if you think that is where it is, then compensation is going from time to actually risk. Remember when you asked the first question that oriented?
Yeah.
Because also it frees up your time. So if you know that you can achieve the result in a shorter time. Let's assume you go and say, you bid for work and they say, hey, this thing will take 6 months and we'll pay you X amount for 6 months, but you know you can do it in 1 month. Your negotiation should change, right? To say that I will achieve for you this thing that you want in a shorter time, but you will pay me the full value of the contract because in your view it takes 6 months. So I'll do it in 1, compensate me for the full 6, but I've freed up 5 months on my time. And I can use that 5 months for something else, right? So the world is going to move. I think the only thing that is holding it back is performance management, right? And for some reason, it's such a traditional practice. I'm not being offensive, but the approach to performance management has time. And most managers kind of manage by time, so they manage by face time. And that move from managing results causes the person, the employer, to now start thinking differently about their business and what's important and what signals am I going to look at to know that progress is being made. Time irrelevant. So I think that inevitably what is going to happen is compensation will change, and compensation will be in favor of time saved, not time worked. Right? So people will put a premium on how fast, but you already do that actually in your daily life. Like if you have an order to place, what do you value? You value who can deliver it quickly. So people will put a premium on time saved. So that whole, and it goes back to that question of should I stay so long in jobs? It's a question of value. Is there opportunity to deliver value on a very extended basis? At that point where you see that any additional value at this point is not significant to myself or to you, and therefore I've become maybe an expensive resource, or this has become a very expensive opportunity. So back to the question, I think that inevitably the world compensation is going to change. It will not be based on time spent, it will be based on time saved and value created. And the earlier we, the employers, that, because the only friction is that the capability internally is not there. Most organizations can't measure that. It's easier to measure time, right? It's easier to say it's a 6 months contract, 6 months have ended, the work is finished, but maybe it would have been done in 1 month, right? So once that capability is built, it's going to accelerate.
Well, now that brings me to the point where we turn to you and we ask you, how do we get some bit of mentorship from you? Stephen, Emma, Elijah, if someone out there, because I see still Arnold Semogedede here said, Arnold said, I beg your pardon, I am kindly requesting for a mentorship opportunity from Mr. Elijah Staka.
Oh God, it is so hard. I'm so hard to find, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's just that life is so busy. Life is so busy, and I hate to promise things that I won't act on. So NSSF, I think that NSSF should do this thing more often. The beauty with platforms like this is they're like one to many, right? So you spend 2 hours, but then you kind of impact so many people, but you would spend that same time on one-to-one and then just impact one person. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
So we could spend this time in these types of platforms because then at least they amplify the impact. That might be easier. Now, how does he get mentorship from me? One, what space is he in? He can find me on social media, then we can take it on from there. I'm not making promises, but I will guide.
Okay.
I will guide.
If they want to follow you, which one is the best platform for them to?
Elijah Kitaka across all platforms.
Across.
So just choose your favorite. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm handle.
Okay. We'll be in your inbox very soon. Emma Mucha, where do we find you?
I'm a more passive. Like when there's breaking news, I'll look. But yeah, my handle on Twitter. I know that too many handles and
Yes.
Emma Mucha 2 is my Twitter handle. I'm also on Facebook.
Emma Muchish on Facebook and on Twitter, Elijah Chitaka on all the social media platforms. I think you can see, for those that call yourselves Bamlicious, using different names on social media, this is another lesson that they can take. You just go and edit your name to the right name. If someone is looking for you, then they should be able to identify you. So if you're calling yourself the coolest kid on the block, please edit it to your real name. They will be looking for you, find you.
First of all, I'm happy to note that one of the persons who called you,
Yes.
is actually a person let me repeat this. I'm happy to note that one of the persons who called in is a person I'm already mentoring, and I already talked about him name.
Yeah.
First things first, mentoring, of course, is also about a personal fit. You really need to believe in the person, and they have to, and you see that they believe in what they are doing and you believe in it. But just like Elijah, you can find me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Using Steven's Manja or something
And
else?
I think that on Twitter and Instagram it's Temwa, STEMWA,
Okay.
but in Facebook it's Stevens Mind Time. Yes, I'll be happy to engage. But the key lesson we take from here, I think, as NSSF, Stambik, is to make a formal for mentoring. And I'm going to take it up with HR team and see whether we can do a more
Work it
formal
out.
program,
Yes.
internships and whatever. But on a personal basis, you can just take those you can take, because like Elijah said, we tend to get very, very busy.
And maybe from this expo, we can
yes.
have 6 months from
Yeah.
now where people can shoot their questions to
Yeah,
Emma, to
Th-
Elijah,
that
to
that is
Stevens.
okay. That is
Yeah.
quite fine. I'll be happy to answer the questions anytime. Anytime I find the free time, I'm happy to answer all the questions.
All right.
And those I'm able to talk to on one-on-one, I can. But they will find my number if we talk.
Okay. We just want to mention it here.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being part of the day 2 of the NSSF Virtual Career Expo. There's been a lot to learn. I want to believe even the people behind the cameras have a lot of things to take back home. Thank you so much. It's been an amazing session for creating the time, speaking to the young people and reminding them of why it is important. Our theme, our sub-theme today has been matching your capabilities to the changing world. Yesterday we were looking at purposing new ideas and opportunities beyond. These are things that are playing within each other, and this is why the general theme of NSSF is repurposing your career goals to the new normal that we are currently working in. Technology, COVID-19, so much to deal with. So this theme, I believe, has been very timely, and we thank you so much, our sponsors, NSSF, Monitor Publications, NMG. We thank you so much for making this possible. The young people, I believe, needed it. COVID-19 sent them back home, but this brings them back to the spirit of how do you prepare to now move ahead with the changes that have been made. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen that are watching us online, our young people, we appreciate you. Do remember that this segment is going all the way to tomorrow. You are stuck with me. Even tomorrow, I'll be right here to take you through the very last day of the expo. Our theme tomorrow, if I can get it right quickly, we'll be focusing on preparing yourself for the current versatile job market. Now, all our speakers have brought in different aspects. How do you use your capabilities? How do you match them to the changing world? Tomorrow, we'll be talking about, after getting all that, how do you now prepare yourself for the things ahead? Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, NSSF. Our quizzes are online. You can get right there and respond to our quizzes, our questions, our poll responses. We are just looking forward for those that you are sending through. The questions will say online, and hopefully some of our speakers can respond to those. Remember, we ask that at every end of the session, we have a poll survey. So all you have to do is really fill it in, and you also stand a chance to win some goodies from Jumia, data, here and there, MiFi, so much more. So please go right away to our social media platforms, NSSF Uganda, and we'll be right there to see your responses. Thank you so much for the amazing 3 hours we've had together. I look forward to seeing you once again tomorrow. I am your moderator, Sandra Twinoglio. Continue to learn and relearn. Have a lovely day.